So, I've covered the Princesses of Adventure Time quite a few times in the past. I've made focus videos on PB and LSP for the Adventure Time analysis series, and apparently some people still don't forgive me for them, but also Flame Princess too, and what I think was the best analysis video I've done. Please check it out even if it's old. But I also covered most of the other princesses in a dedicated video, though mostly focusing on how Raggedy Princess is undoubtedly the best princess in the show. And they do get brought up occasionally in other Adventure Time based videos in various segments. I do think that the princesses are very important in Adventure Time's world building, establishing the many different kingdoms in this show and all the numerous races that coexist, to make the world more cohesive than a bunch of random stuff going on. Okay, granted it still kind of feels that way, but the princesses help out a lot. And hell, Princess Day was one of my favorite concepts in this show, showing that all the kingdoms have a strange form of government and alliance, and each work making sustainable trade relations, and it's super interesting. I really wish that was the focus instead of LSP. Hell, I've even made a few designs myself I posted around, like designing Princess Business, who was name dropped and never seen, and a headcanon chief ruled over the businessmen, and Plague Princess, who's entirely original and based off the diseased Candy Kingdom and what have you done. Here's some screenshot edits I did. But despite the many princesses and appearances of them in the show, it's easy to forget that most of the time they really were just there for the Ice King, who's the main source of villainy in the early seasons and was trying to kidnap princesses to make them his bride. Hell, it was literally the introduction to the many princesses of Ooh outside of Bubblegum and LSP. And I feel that a lot of the princesses' reputation is just being kidnapping victims. But is that really true? I don't know how much of that is valid in the actual show. Now, sure, a lot of the kidnappings died down as the show progressed and the show developed its lore, writing, and even Ice King as a character, giving us the bomb and Holly Jolly secrets that he was a good man pre-war who got turned insane by the magic crown, and looks for princesses in an attempt to get the love of his life back, and even about halfway through the series stopped going after princesses. Granted, it didn't quite stick a few times, but still, is it really warranted that the princesses get the reputation for being constantly kidnapped? I don't know about that. I want to take a look at every princess in this show and count and basically rank how many times they got kidnapped by anyone. These are going to be ranked from least kidnapped to most kidnapped and give us a good idea of how many times were the princesses kidnapped at all. And also answer who in the show got kidnapped the most. So yeah, let's take another look at the Princesses of Adventure Time to see how many times each of them got kidnapped. Okay, but again before we start, like always, we gotta set up some ground rules, but it's pretty simple. As I said, I'm going through every named Adventure Time princess and count how many times each were kidnapped and by who. And we're going from least kidnapped to most kidnapped to make this more interesting. Though this isn't just counting Ice King kidnappings, it's if any character took a princess against their will, so there's a few you won't expect. So because of this, I can't count any of the princesses in loyalty to the king, because all the princesses there came to the nice king willingly and could leave at any time if they really wanted, even if the waiting room was like a prison. Also indicated with how the princesses beat his ass once they found out. They weren't trapped there with him, he was trapped there with them. Attempted kidnappings will get a mention but won't count. But what really made it challenging was Princess Monster Wife, since a good chunk of the princesses got a piece of their bodies stolen and Frankenstein to be a horrific bride for Ice King. Like, a part of them was taken against their will by Ice King, but it wasn't entirely them? Does this count? Can I fractionalize kidnapping? I don't know, but for the sake of the video, they will be mentioned, but they won't count for the overall list. Also obvious, but no comic or game exclusive events, only in the show media counts. I should totally cover the Adventure Time comics one day, there's a whole other continuity there. But okay, enough, so let's get into it. Now at the very bottom, we're gonna cover all the princesses in the show that weren't kidnapped, at least that we haven't seen on screen. Once again, not covering loyalty to the king since those princesses were never kidnapped. There's a lot of them, so I'll try to be brief. First off, let's go with Embryo Princess, one of the more reoccurring princesses, though we never see her kingdom. Honestly, for the best, the kingdom of embryo people in some sort of organic womb sounds incredibly disgusting. Maybe that could be why Ice King never went after her, except for her being in loyalty to the king. But we know he has no interest in underage girls since he gave up on PB when she became 13, and a literal fetus is going way too far. Granted, it does kind of break that, but we'll get to it later. Then, Grid-Face Princess, who also appears in a lot of princess gatherings like Loyalty to the King and Princess Potluck. As I said many times, she's my favorite of the background princesses, and one I really wish got more attention and we could see her kingdom. She has one of the most unorthodox designs and themes that doesn't tell you much of what she's about. The only hints we get is in something big, where she helps out PB defend the Candy Kingdom against Maja and Darren with their force field technology, so advanced even PB doesn't know how they work, implying she has a ton of futuristic technology. There's so much you could do with them and their kingdom, and I'm really disappointed they weren't a princess that got got a whole episode. Come on, Adventure Time. I swear this channel has made me disappointed in how many cool ideas the show didn't have. Ironic how Ice King never went after her despite being one of the most humanoid princesses, doing after a dog more. But she does wear a mask, so I don't know, maybe she's actually ugly, or he's turned off by Among Us's. And then Ancient Glass and See-Through Princess. I don't want to get into them too much when I inevitably get to Marceline's video, so just say they never got kidnapped. Breezy? I don't know if she really counts as a princess, but she is a queen of bees. Though Ice King gave up on princesses when this episode came out, so it's clear why he never went after her. But my main question is how she exists with Bee Princess. Yeah, there's a whole other bee princess, who also looks nothing like the other bees we see. What gives? How do their kingdoms work? Are they rulers of different hives? Who knows, but Bee Princess is very easy to forget with Breezy around. Bandit Princess, though, is more memorable, being the only known evil princess in the show. Openly, that is. But they never confirm if she's actually a princess, but I'm gonna treat her like it. I do headcanon that she's the princess of the City of Thieves from Season 1. Hell, Penny was gonna take her place in the first draft of the story. Makes sense why Ice King wouldn't have gone after her. She has actual blood in her hands. 2 may enter, but only 1 is leaving alive. And weirdly, Bounce House Princess. Yeah, she may be the hardest princess to rationalize existing, and this is a world where a sock puppet is my favorite.
Everybody, take refuge in my body!
Weirdly, she doesn't seem to have a kingdom, but she has a house in a cave and didn't show up in Princess Day, so she might be unregistered. I guess even for Ice King, she's just too big and abstract to go after, but I guess she enjoyed bouncing her for a bit. Also, she never shows up again after Astral Plane, so maybe the porcupine killed her. Crab Princess we know very little about, or her kingdom, but she did throw the princess party at the start of Breezy, and did help Finn start kissing princesses to get over his depression. She appears in Post Party's Over, so Ice King never went after her. Also, I'm not big in her design, mostly her hands. How did you draw a crab so badly? It doesn't have pincers, you had one job. Then Frozen Yogurt Princess. I can barely count this as a character, since the joke is that she blended PB and Flame Princess after Finn lost both, and tried dating her, but she was weirdly in LSP's coronation ceremony in the finale. So, is there an ice cream kingdom out there, or is she some random candy person? Come on, I already had to deal with enough people saying that PB somehow made the other kingdoms. There's literally no evidence for that at all. You made this up, please shut up. Jungle Princess is another of my favorites design-wise, but she never actually got any notable appearances, not even any voice lines. Her only appearance was in Loyalty to the King in Far Shots and Princess Day, but she was in Ice King's Imagination Zone, so I guess he's into her. Really wish she got an episode and showing off her kingdom. She could be one of the coolest princesses, come on. I want to see a tribal warrior princess so badly. Why didn't Ice King go after her? Like, again, he kidnapped a puppet, a dog, and a fruit. Speaking of the Imagination Zone, apparently this one is named Laurel Princess, but it's her only appearance. The only thing we know about them is from the wiki saying that she's based off the receptionist at Cartoon Network, so that's nice. Lizard Princess was another one who appeared in the zone, but did have one really small cameo as one of the princesses Finn goes to in Breezy. Now, I was really curious about her when I was younger, and I really want to know what her and her kingdom was like, but we got a really weird look. She got a bit of a redesign looking a bit more demonic, so it doesn't look too lizardy to me. But her kingdom is in what seems to be like the ruins of some apartment, but inside it seems like the kingdom has this weird pagan occult thing going on with the robed members and stone architecture, and it looks like they were doing an animal sacrifice. Okay, what the hell is going on here? I need to know the story behind this. But this is the only thing we get. I'm pretty mad. Nightmare Princess is weird being like the last princess introduced in the show, but she's weird because there already was a Nightmare Princess in Secret of the Nameless Kingdom, the game that says that giving the player any actual idea of what to do is for chumps. Seriously, like, who designed that game? It kills all enjoyment. Her role in the show was weird. Like in season 9, she helps give the hero some weird nightmare foreshadowing and the potion used in the finale, which she communicates through nightmares to ask for bananas. Yes. Also, I like how she looks like the transformed Nightmare Princess in the game, so it might be connected. But yeah, for being so late and so ethereal, it would be impossible for them to be kidnapped anyway. Peanut Princess is another common background princess showing up in Loyalty to the King and Princess Day, where it seems they export peanut oil. Not really much of them, just a simple basic themed princess, but yeah, kind of weird that they weren't more of a kidnapping victim. Princess Beautiful, I think she counts. She was a gag princess where Finn needed to find a princess hair for the tree witch, and is so desperate he resorts to flat out grave robbing to get the hair off of Princess Beautiful. But unfortunately, she died of baldness. Hilarious, but I wonder how you can die from that. Now we had canon, she's actually some type of weird hair-based humanoid like Cousin It. Though for some reason she's also undead and just walks away when freed, huh? Also, she knows Finn somehow? Did something happen? Plus, fun fact, she's voiced by Jeremy Shada. Yes, Finn himself, and God, he actually has a really good female voice. I had no idea until the credits.
Hi, Finn. What are you? Please stop.
Also, is she just gonna wander the Earth now as a skeleton? Imagine if there's a skeleton princess. Foreshadowing. Anyway, for being, dead and buried, it's hard to kidnap someone. Princess Business is a princess who was mentioned in Princess Day but never seen.
To Princess Business. Oh no, not you, Princess Business.
Again, I took it upon myself to draw a design for them in the Raggedy Princess video. Tell me what you think. Princess. Definitely one of the most unsightly princesses ever. Just look at them. Ew. What kingdom could she possibly rule? I really hope it's not filled with so many conjoined mutants. She speaks through each head almost like a hive mind, but yes, in case you're wondering, apparently the monster head can only speak in roars and gibberish. I presume like she's a somewhat frequent background princess showing up in Ice King's Imagination Zone, Loyalty to the King, Princess Potluck, and Princess Day. With how many times they appear, I'm kinda surprised they didn't get kidnapped. Maybe Ice King doesn't like the whole quintuple mutant factor, but she does show up in the Imagination Zone, so maybe he is into her. Then there's Purple Princess, another common background princess shown in the Imagination Zone, Loyalty to the King, and Princess Day, so she's registered. Though they're again another themed but kind of abstract princess. Apparently they were originally going to be called Lavender Princess and is based off a lavender plant. Kinda surprised they weren't shown as a casual kidnap victim, but I guess I wanted to prioritize the more notable ones. Then Space Angel Princess. Like before, they were in the Imagination Zone, Loyalty to the King, and Princess Day, but they had an extra cameo in Ocarina, being one of the people interested in renting out Finn and Jake's house for some reason. Why does a princess need to go into real estate?
Boy, do I love real estate!
But like some others, I'm really interested to see what her deal is. Like, I think she has a great design. I'd love to see what the Space Angel people would be like. Is it like some ethereal heaven-like space? Maybe like Lumpy Space, but not filled with the most obnoxious people known to man? Why do so many of the cool princesses never have their kingdoms or selves explored? Like, these could be so cool to see realized in any plot. Come on, show. Also, her having a gray alien thing, I wonder if she's at all related to Princess Zip, who implies the Greys we see have some sort of monarchy. Yeah, unfortunately, another background priority princess, so the Ice King never went after them. Shame. And lastly, there's Strudel Princess, presumably the Breakfast Kingdom's youngest princess, as they only really appeared in Princess Day, and she feels way too young to be kidnapped. And I think that should be all the princesses that were never kidnapped at all. Well, except for Banangan Princess, who's non-canon, and I guess Beth, but I don't think she counts. And honestly, that's a good chunk of the princesses who never got kidnapped, so already it's showing that plenty of them are entirely independent for being damsels in distresses. But also, most of these had no real impact in the show and were just in the background. Makes me really wish the show utilized them more. But there's a few exceptions to these. The princesses who were never kidnapped, but were used in Princess Monster Wife. Now, Princess Monster Wife was said to be made of parts of Ice King's favorite princesses, so that means he has genuine feelings for the ones he stole chunks of flesh from. There's Skeleton Princess, who he stole her leg. Yeah, there's another skeleton princess next to Princess Beautiful. It's weird. People probably get mixed up, but they are a reoccurring one after their appearance in the Imagination Zone for nearly every princess event. Still though, I wonder, does she rule a skeleton kingdom? Is she a ruler of the undead? So like in the underworld where Finn and Jake were chased by the skeletons after their flesh, would they have to obey her? A lot of questions unanswered. Still, it has been shown that the Ice King has some feelings for her in his Imagination Zone, and being one of the components of Princess Monster Wife, so I guess it's an honorary kidnapping. Same thing with Elbow Princess, one of the other more confusing princesses. She has an elbow for a head. What? Do all her people have elbow heads, or are they just weird abominations of limbs? Did Magic Man pull something here? What's going on? She is a registered princess by Princess Day, so yeah, she has to have some kingdom. Honestly, I'm surprised that she wasn't changed with a more interesting or established princess, since this was her first appearance. Hell, Raggedy isn't used in Princess Monster Wife. What gives you don't want some of best girl? So yeah, those were the princesses that were never kidnapped, but did have a chunk of them kidnapped, so I guess it counts as partial kidnapping. Again, can I divide kidnapping by proportion, or is it just organ trafficking at this point? But now it's time for the serious stuff, the actual no holding back kidnappings by Ice King or really anyone else. If the princess is in another castle, it counts, so we're gonna start with those who only have one confirmed kidnapping and work our way up. Let's start first with Emerald Princess. Despite being one of the oldest princesses we've seen, unlike the other ones in Prisoners of Love, she has basically no development or focus in an episode again. We just know her emerald is somehow a gem of power. If that thing was any bigger, I think Knuckles would go guarding it. And because of her little screen time, her only kidnapping we've seen was in that episode along with the other princesses. Dude, kinda wish she was used more so you could have something interesting going on. Hey, wait, would Finn think she's Ruby Princess?
Emeralds are green, boy. This thing is green. Sometimes red things are gray.
You're a little colorblind.
Oh.
Kinda similar with Ghost Princess. Ghost Princess, I don't really know why she's kidnapped. She's a ghost and is incorporeal. Literally, how did she get kidnapped and why can't she escape? I don't think Ice King's ice has any ghost sealing magic. My only guess is that she intentionally stays because she doesn't want to risk the others' lives. Though loyalty to the king shows that she's really desperate to find a nice person to be with and she's looking for love, which is very fitting for her final episode, aptly named Ghost Princess, where we find out that she was once Warrior Princess who died in battle after her lover Clarence murdered her to his immense regret. But eventually they forgave each other, finding out how each other died and got to ascend to the 50th Dead World. So they never came back in the show except for a cameo in Together Again, showing they're still together. Though one thing that's confusing is that Ghost Princess is implied to be ancient since he was the oldest spirit in the graveyard, but yet Clarence is still able to have died when Jake was around. Is he immortal or something? It's weird. Also, this episode proves that Ghost Princess is the ghost of a princess, not the princess of Ghost, which is why none of the others really seem to respect her. Still, a focal episode like this was a lot more than a lot of the other princesses got. I wish a lot of the other background ones got episodes like this. But still, only appearing in 3 episodes, she didn't have much time to get kidnapped before she was written out of the series. Then, Hot Dog Princess. As before, she was first introduced in Prisoners of Love, as one of the kidnapped princesses to introduce Ice King. Though she does have a few appearances after, like getting attacked by the battle cubes in Business Time. But then she really wants to kiss Finn though, and apparently she smells like old hot dog water. God, now I'm just imagining the horrible wet dog hot dog smell they must have. Also, her kingdom is really just a doghouse and a fence, but she does rule over the hot dog knights, even if they're as effective as real hot dogs.
Wow, you guys are really stupid.
What do you mean?
She definitely has some of the most cameos out of any princess, so it's weird that she was only kidnapped once. Though she was taken for Princess Monster Wife, using her entire lower body for their leg. Though with her in the original kidnapped marriage batch, that this does imply that the Ice King has a thing for dogs, really enough. Ironic though, since he technically married Jake once. Crazy to think these two are technically a divorced couple, just think that in the back of your mind from now on.
Guys, help me celebrate my unmarriage.
Okay, then there's Muscle Princess, another notable reoccurring princess in the show, but wasn't in Prisoners of Love. Admittedly, she's one of my least favorite princesses by design and personality, so maybe I'm happy she doesn't get an episode focus. Though I question, does she lead the muscle people, or is just an exceptionally muscular individual of another civilization? We know she lives in a castle at least. Now, Muscle Princess is just as strong and brawny as she seems, so you wonder how she got kidnapped. But in Betty, after the whole deal stopping Bella Noche, she seemingly was kidnapped just so Ice King can tell someone what happened. And then she broke out and then beat the shit out of him. Okay, maybe it makes sense why she didn't get kidnapped before. But still, she did somehow get kidnapped, even if she somewhat easily escaped herself and get revenge, so it counts as a single kidnapping. Plus, she was also used in Princess Monster Wife, fitting with her arm. Then, Engagement Ring Princess. I said it before, but she's one of my favorite princesses design-wise, I love it. Though it does bring up the question of her kingdom. Apparently she was designed as a crazy bridesmaid, so is she like in some wedding kingdom or all the inhabitants is blue peel with jewelry stuck on them? At least we know her diamond is a gem of power, so that's quite the ring jewel. We first see her in the Ice King's imagination zone, but the first and only time we see her getting kidnapped is in the beginning of Loyalty to the King. Weirdly, they imply the experience traumatized them.
Save me, Finn and Jake.
She's traumatized, dude.
But later, when he becomes the nice king, she's all over him.
Tell you that I like the opera, but if you don't, I hate it.
Then again, if there's any princess to be crazy about marriage, it should be her.
Man, these ladies really want to get married.
Unfortunately, that's her only appearance of importance, but she is common to see in princess get-togethers. Shame because I wish she got more appearances of importance like a lot of other princesses. She was not used in Princess Monster Wife, however. Toast Princess is a weird one, presumably being the younger sister of Breakfast Princess, just being a living slice of toast. Now, I can't count her first appearance in Hitman as that was an attempted kidnapping by the Ice King. He really didn't try that hard with this one though. However, it seemed that he eventually successfully pulled it off by the episode Bad Little Boy. The second Fiona and Cake episode where he's captured a chunk of Ooze princesses to read them his next fanfic. Hilariously, it's so bad they think it's a form of torture. But weirdly, Finn and Jake didn't come to rescue 4 of Ooze princesses, and Marceline actually frees them. But she tells her own self-insertion gender swap AU fanfic that everyone loves. Then again, I can't believe anyone would intentionally write themselves as emo as Marshall Lee here, good lord. But still, weird to pick them for it, but I appreciate the variety. Though I am concerned by her age, I always figure she's pretty young. Though with Toast Princess, there's also Breakfast Princess, the more prominent figure and presumably active ruler of the Breakfast Kingdom. Does that make Toast Princess like Breakfast Duchess? I don't know, ooh, royalty never makes any sense. But you might think, wait, Ice King never kidnapped Breakfast Princess. He failed, shouldn't she be in the never kidnapped category? You'd think that, but no, it did happen. Not by Ice King, but by Lumpy Space Princess and Marceline. Yes, this totally counts. At Princess Day, she was run over, knocked out, kept in a trunk, and drove out from her kingdom to get dumped and ditched at a desert. Really harsh punishment just for putting LSP in her place like she genuinely deserves. As I said, this should totally count as a declaration of war. Like, this is flat out assault and kidnapping. There should be something going on between Lumpy Space and the Breakfast Kingdom after. I would say Marceline, but she doesn't rule anything. Why is she considered royalty? I mean, she calls herself the Vampire Queen, and knows she killed the Vampire King, but she's the last vampire. She has nothing and nowhere to rule. By that logic, Finn would be the Human King. Breakfast Princess is one of my favorite princesses, mostly because of Princess Day, and I respect anyone willing to call LSP out on the show. Curiously, she was not a part of Princess Monster Wife, though granted he comes across a lot more like a teenager than an adult. Though speaking of LSP, yes, there's Lumpy Space Princess. Okay, I've already gone off why I really can't stand her. She's so annoying and obnoxious and never grows as a character. Hell, the show constantly regresses what development she has just to make cheap jokes. I do not understand why whenever I talk about her, so many people defend her. Like, what do you guys possibly see in her? She's literally just an obnoxious teenager with the voice of a guy. The only remotely funny thing she did is
My beans!
and I think the word beans just being funny did like 70% of the work. I've heard people say that, well, she's supposed to be unlikable. She's like an anti-character. The point is that she doesn't grow. But like, does that make it any good? Besides, the problem is that no one treats her the way they should. Like, everyone just enables them, but doesn't treat them like an obnoxious brat despite her constantly being one. Like, Lemon Grab has basically all the same characteristics, but that works so much better because people at least acknowledge he's an obnoxious jerk and clearly don't want to deal with him. But everyone else just treats LSP like a great friend when she constantly isn't. It's a huge audience character disconnect when no one treats the character like they should, and just kind of reeks of being a writer's pet. Something the show has struggled with a lot. I don't know why she's in so many episodes. Nearly every episode she takes charge of is painful and annoying, and it seriously makes me wish that any other princess got an episode instead. It's a crime they never got their chance to shine as LSP hogs so many episodes, just being a complete pain. Why, show? But okay, back to the topic. At least in the show, they don't focus on her kidnapping, as she was only taken once in Prisoners of Love. And thankfully, that was one of her less obnoxious episodes. However, she was taken for Princess Monster Wife, and was a part of her face, making her one of Ice King's favorites. Except loyalty to the king, he expresses that he didn't want to be with her at all, and Hitman even tried to get Scorcher to kill her instead. I wish he accepted. Okay, but Peel posted a clip of him abandoning 13-year-old PB like, hell yeah, he ain't about that, but he kind of is. I explained before, but since in season 2 they explained LSP at a quinceañera, which if it follows Latin American culture, that means she turned 15. So in Prisoners of Love, that means LSP was 14. Holy shit! So what, kidnapping and wedding 13-year-old girls is too much, but kidnapping 14-year-old ones are fine? Yeah, that's pretty ewy, and they clearly didn't think that far ahead. But still, only technically got kidnapped once. I mean, she was teleported by Viola to the Ice Kingdom in summer showers, but it's not really being kidnapped. She's not being held captive or hostage. She just booked it back to the Candy Kingdom, just really annoyed. I'm not counting the part in Together Again where she was kidnapped with Turtle Princess. That was a hallucination. Speaking of which, Turtle Princess. She's definitely one of the most prominent princesses in the show, but ironically, barely tied to Ice King in most of her appearances. She's tied intrinsically to the library, which is a recurring location in a few episodes, and is used a lot for inter-princess relationships like LSP and Gotcha. It's another thing where I wish this was more common with the other princesses to give her more point and purpose in the world and stories. Now, in Loyalty to the King, the Ice King expressly says that he doesn't really like Turtle Princess that much, but a lot of the stuff in the show says otherwise. First, she was kidnapped by Ice King in her only true kidnapping, and bad little boys like Toast Princess forced the hero's horrible fanfic. For a literature buff, it really must be torture for her, but she was one of the princesses taken for Princess Monster Wife, taking up half her face, meaning that she has a lot of importance for him. But most importantly is that she was the chosen girl. She was the one that Ice King inevitably would marry. Well, technically Gunther in the form of the ice thing, but it still counts. Yeah, crazy that she of all princesses would eventually actually marry him willingly. I wonder if the ice thing is a good husband or not. However, we see 1,000 years in the future, the library is in ruin with all the books turned to weird guns for some reason, and the pagelings who defended the books have become horrific hostile monsters. Turtle Princess's shell is seen, implying that she died, but also a weird robot now takes host of it. God, future Ooh is so depressing. But yeah, Turtle Princess is another one with a single kidnapping. Next is a princess I guarantee most of you forgot about, the Mini Queen. Yeah, definitely a blast from the past. Now you might say that, well, she's a queen, not a princess. Well, she was in the imagination zone and was in loyalty to the king, so she's basically treated like a princess. Besides, like every princess that's not Flame Princess or LSP counts as a queen since they're the ruling female monarch anyway. I really wonder what her deal is. She seems to be an insect queen, so maybe she rules a kingdom of bugs. Could be kind of interesting. Now, she was never taken by the Ice King and instead was taken by the Swamp Giant for some unknown reason. After she's freed, she runs off but leads her to find the cave of Billy, who's so cynical of the cycle of good and evil that he finds it pointless and that the mini queen is already captured again. And according to storyboards, he's right. Yeah, random pick, but hey, it counts to the list. Speaking of a random pick, there's the Old Lady Princess. Yeah, really, just Old Lady Princess. Seems weird, but apparently it's confirmed that old ladies are just a separate species for some apparent reason. That's Adventure Time for you. In When Wedding Balls Thaw, the Ice King gladly tells Finn and Jake that he's engaged to her willingly and will give up kidnapping princesses. But they have to make sure it's sticked, giving him a bachelor's party and trying to reassure him that marriage is worth it. But soon after they found out it's all a farce, as Ice King just mind controlled her too, with a magical ring, and she'd rather die than marry that turd. Hilariously, Jake is pissed that they forced them to do all that stuff for a marriage he basically had complete control over.
Well, then why did you make us go through all that junk about why marriage is worth stuff?
Oh, I don't know. Uncomplicated.
So they had to do a narrow fight the fear, and then Jake ends up marrying him somehow instead. Yeah, weird, and again they had an off-screen divorce. Wow, that this is canon. But still, Old Lady Princess wasn't prominent again, but she did show up in Princess Day, so she's a registered princess. Not really sure what the show could do with them, but I am glad they made an original princess for the plot. And there's another really obscure one, I don't know counts, but Cotton Candy Princess. She was in the montage showing the heroic exploits of Billy being a weird bizarro Princess Bubblegum XP, kidnapped by the Fire Count, who's also a weird bizarro Ice King XP. This has a ton of implications. One that seems to establish some previous ruler of the Candy Kingdom in Ooh, which there was a lot of evidence in the early seasons that PB was never the only ruler of the kingdom, but was in a lineage of rulers, seen by the different portraits in the castle and the famous Uncle Gumbald mention.
My great Uncle Gumbald cut down all these taffy trees in a single night.
Which in the final season of the show is ultimately explained and retconned like what Adventure Time does. But still, this isn't really accounted for in lore, so yeah, what gives. Also, that the Fire Count might imply a much older ruler of the Fire Kingdom if his name is legitimate, potentially being an ancestor to Flame King. So I guess the Fire Kingdom does have some lore conflicts with the Candy Kingdom. Nah, the cooler's still Still, though, we see this princess getting kidnapped, so no matter how brief, they get here. And to another of my favorites, Dr. Princess. Technically, it shouldn't count because she's not even an actual princess, it's just her last name. Hell, she's not even an actual doctor, her name is just Dr. Princess. The Nicole Watterson method, I guess.
Nicole is my middle name. My first name is Doctor.
But she's surprisingly really good at it, at least enough to be a trusted medical professional. Though clearly she's not a registered princess, nor has any actual kingdom to rule. Though maybe she heads a hospital. I love her design and her personality, and many people at first theorized that she was Betty because they are very similar, but that was deconfirmed. Still, there's a chance that the reason why she's targeted by Ice King aside from him mistaking her as an actual princess could be because she reminded him of Betty. I really wish that was addressed more. She also seems to have some interest in magic, as she has an alter ego in Science Wiser trying to enter the wizard battle, which I really wish was elaborated on more. It could be really interesting to see where it goes. But she had her first and only kidnapping in Chamber of the Frozen Blades, where Flambeau got intel that the Ice King was going to kidnap a princess, but it seems that he just went to Dr. Princess for Gunther's random pregnancy. And though it seems like Finn and Jake were in the wrong for assuming it and tried to make it up to him, no, he really did kidnap Dr. Princess anyway, stuffing her in a bag to take them to his place where the duo unleashed karmic justice. As well as that, her sides were also used for Princess Monster Wife. She's one of my favorites, and I do wish she got more important appearances. Again, replace crappy LSP episodes with her. But now to my absolute favorite princess, Raggedy Princess. She literally got her own video. I love her. She's so absolutely precious and adorable. She's so cute and sweet and huggable. Even if that shard of glass would probably slit my throat. But what I love is that she's one of the few princesses that have a unique personality and attributes to them and establish them more as a character. Despite her personality, she's very lonely and desperately seeks affection and possibly a purpose, having incredibly low self-esteem, relegating herself as just a scarecrow. But even then, personally finds she's not good at it. And she vents her sadness and loneliness through her poetry, but desperately wants people to share it with. Something I definitely understand as a content creator. But even despite that and all her internal struggles and kind of getting treated like crap by other princesses, she still keeps a super optimistic mindset. Oh my god, she's so adorable and precious. I love her so much.
Bless you, Raggedy Princess.
It's no wonder she's my favorite. I just seriously wish she got a starring episode. I've said it multiple times, but god, Neptr and Raggedy work so well together. Oh my god. Their personalities complement each other so much. Both are patchwork beings with feelings of abandonment and being treated like crap. And Neptr literally had a plot point about being obsessed with princesses that never got brought up again in the show because screw it, he rapped once, that's all he's good for. I am so mad they don't have an episode together. Come on, Fiona and Cake, I'm begging you. So yeah, absolutely love Raggedy, and she's a joy in any episode she's in. Curiously, she wasn't seen in the Ice King's Imagination Zone, and her kingdom is the Ooh Junkyard, or known as the Rag and Bone Kingdom. However, despite this, she is a registered princess, seen in the meeting of Ooh royalty and had a seat in Princess Day. She also apparently is super skilled in repair and crafting, being an expert on the subject. Which again, Neptr was too, he made awesome mechs out of junk, as was a damn sure remembered it. But despite her apparently being the sweetest thing in existence, the Ice King doesn't seem too fond of her, since she's surprisingly one of the few reoccurring princesses not to be used for Princess Monster Wife. Her one and only kidnapping comes in her introduction, being one of the many princesses captured by Ice King in his first marriage attempt. Again, weird how she was only taken once, but hell, I still love her. Again, please Fiona and Cake, give us that Raggedy and Neptr scene. Well, okay, that about does it for the princesses with only a single kidnapping. To many it might seem surprising that a good chunk of the notable princesses were only taken once, and not even by the Ice King for some of it. And we only have a handful of other princesses that were kidnapped more than that, so let's go. Next, Flame Princess. Flame Princess is another one of my absolute favorite princesses and one of my favorite characters in this show. Not only is she really cool having so many awesome powers, but she genuinely has great character and story to her. She was imprisoned most of her life by a power she couldn't control, which drove her insane, believing she was only a being of destruction, not knowing the true world. However, Finn has such immense passion for her, he single-handedly manages to avert her view on the world and that they aren't defined by who they are and can be so much more. Finn had a profound impact on her, and their commitment to each other was so great, they want to be together even if they can't actually touch each other. It's so beautiful, just like our flame spell exists. But even then, Flame Princess struggles a lot with their temper and innate destructive potential, even if Finn tries to reassure them that they are good. And then the show ruined all of that with Frost and Fire, and broke them up randomly, and then had just no idea what to do with her, speedran her development, and overthrew her father, making the respective rule of the Fire Kingdom like an instant. Then ruined her character in the worst episode of the show, and one of my most hated ever, and then they decide to make her a rapper, and yeah, that's all her character was, right? No conflicts about her morality and being a being of destruction, now she has to enter a rap battle because a squirrel scammed her. Okay, seriously, never get a rap hobby in this show. The writers will think it's literally your only character. Literally, they become a rapping band. What's their stage name? The Done Dirty Duo? Yeah, I have an entire video to that. I went into more detail with. Check it out for more info. But still, how Flame Princess was treated is so damn disappointing, as eventually she was only regarded by her relationship with Finn and stupid rapping. But still, in regards to the video, you probably didn't think she was kidnapped. Ice King never went after her, and when they finally did confront each other, it didn't go well for both of them. And yeah, she would, if it wasn't for the arrival of Patient St. Pym, the real elemental avatar of Ice who wants to rejoin the other current elementals reincarnated as Bubblegum, FP, and Slime Princess to their full potential. And then convinces Ice King, who at this point gave up on capturing princesses, to give back for her sake, and pretty easily does. Like seriously, Flame Princess would not be this easily captured. Still, being depowered, she couldn't resist and was taken to the Ice Kingdom, so yeah, it counts. She got kidnapped by Ice King, albeit because of someone else. And technically, that wasn't the only time, as in a brief flashback just before the elemental takeover, Patient hypnotized all the three princesses to take them to the Ice Castle and use Magic Man infused Betty as a power source to cause the immense elemental explosion that took over all of Ooh. So yeah, she technically got kidnapped 2 times. I guess Don John also counts, but I don't count it since they came back to the Fire Kingdom in a failed assault and was sealed away. It doesn't feel like kidnapping. Like getting captured in a battle doesn't really feel like legit kidnapping. You'd never expect it, but yeah, this happened and it counts. Now we get to the final 3 at this point, and it might be obvious who's winning, but let's continue anyway. Then, Slime Princess. Another quintessential princess in the show, but the show really gave them a big role later on. They were one of the princesses kidnapped in Prisoners of Love, and was basically the figurehead of the whole ordeal. Kind of the emergency person in charge until their escape. Granted, this was really sussy.
I'd like to marry you.
And the fact that it somehow became a reoccurring thing later on in love games where she wanted to marry Finn to stop her evil sister Blargatha from getting the throne and conquering Ooh. It also gave us spooning, but at least there it seems that Slime Princess has no feelings for Finn, only wanting the merchant name only, and vomited trying to kiss him, so I guess it's saved. still gross, and that's coming from literal slimes. She was also used in Princess Monster Wife, but it's hard to tell. She had a chunk of her slimy butt taken, which Ice King is very fond of. Ew. She was technically the catalyst in loyalty to the king, who was into the new Nice King, and got the other princesses to know about it. But we get another legit kidnapping in Bad Little Boy, as another princess forced hostage to hear his fanfic. But the show does give them sudden immense importance in the story, revealing that she's the elemental avatar of the slime element, even kind of becoming a natural at the ability compared to PB, who struggled with it. Also give credit, she's one of the few characters who can actually call PB out for her actions and attitude.
Slime is overrated.
I guess your real elemental power is envy. Bye, hater.
But because of this, like before, Patience got Ice King to kidnap her once again to the Ice Kingdom, and again to start the mega spell for the elementification. So yeah, that leads to Slime Princess getting a pretty big 4, technically 4.5 kidnappings. Honestly, I wish the show did more with her, because outside of the elemental arc, she really had nothing of importance before or after. Then again, the entire elemental arc had like no real consequences or introspection from the characters, when it really should have, aside from, hey, Gumball's here now. Honestly, it's insanely disappointing because they could have done so much with it. Then our runner-up, surprisingly, is Wildberry Princess. Yeah, by technicality, she is by far the biggest Ice King victim, showing up in Prisoners of Love as the last of Ice King's initial victims in marriage considerations, though probably the one he was closest to killing. Yeah, season 1 Ice King was something else. She's another super reoccurring princess, but a lot of the time is shown to be a kidnapping victim, such as in the Eyes in the beginning montage of the duo's exploits to show that they rescued her from being forced to a picnic, and technically foreshadows the twist. Then also she had another moment in Holly Jolly Secrets of all things, showing in one of Ice King's many tapes, forced to his little skits, having no idea what's going on and terrified. And lastly, in Bad Little Boy, as the last of the princesses forced to hear his fanfic, also used in Princess Monster Wife with her arm being taken. So yeah, that's 4 whole Ice King kidnappings and without any Patience interference. Now, Wildberry Princess does have a lot of other appearances in episodes, like practically every other princess-based one, but also in Jake vs. Meow being targeted for assassination. Not quite kidnapping, but it's close. And in Furniture and Meat, where she gets so annoyed at Finn and Jake for abusing their wealth, she literally tries to Game of Thrones them to death. Holy shit, lady. I mean, considering how many times you get kidnapped, maybe don't kill the only guys out here to save you. But seriously, with all of these, she's really the go-to princess for kidnapping. So really, Wildberry Princess can be considered the face of it, and potentially Ice King's real favorite princess to kidnap. But in canon, there's only one. Yeah, kind of obvious, especially with her number of appearances, but Princess Bubblegum has arguably been kidnapped the most. But unlike Wildberry Princess, her kidnappings come a lot from technicality. Now, Princess Bubblegum has been stated multiple times to be Ice King's favorite princess, but that surprisingly isn't much of a thing in the series. Well, if you disregard the pilot and some of the games like Jumping Finn, the greatest game ever made. I mean, if you count kidnapping attempts, it increases like it tries and fails to in Parties Over, which kicks off the plot, and technically a glitch is a glitch. But that was more strong armor hurt to a relationship, or he'll destroy the universe. But the first actual kidnapping we see in the show was in the start of Ricardio, making off with her before being foiled. And then in Mortal Folly, he kidnapped her, basically to like be insanely needy to Finn and Jake for ignoring his pleas to support his marriage proposal while a literal death god is trying to destroy all life. But that's literally it. That's all the time the Ice King intentionally tried to kidnap PB with intent to marry her. Like, wow, it only happened twice in the whole show. Really doesn't support the claim. Granted, Ricardio also technically captured PB to tear her heart out,
Make out with it.
but does that count as kidnapping? She's in her own kingdom. I genuinely don't know if this is a Don John situation or not, so yeah, I could go either way. But then the Elemental arc happened like 5 seasons later with Patience needing PB and gets Ice King to kidnap her like before. But again, this wasn't his intention, he just did it for Patience. And then later, it's seen that she kidnaps PB again to perform the Mega Spell. But that's it. Well, she was also one of the key parts of Princess Monster Wife, obviously taking half her face for his bride's face, as she's one of his biggest choices. Though weirdly, PB seems almost lobotomized, losing half her head. But curiously, Turtle Princess was still fully cognizant and talkative when she got the lobotomy combo meal on the other side. What happened is her frontal lobe is on her right, but honestly considering she used lobotomy juice as the basis of her kingdom to ensure all her citizens are brain dead and can't think for themselves, I think her getting lobotomized herself is actually pretty karmic justice. Sorry guys, I'm sorry. I really tried to get through this whole video without a dig at PB's terribleness, but I couldn't help it, it's right there. But still, she has about 5.5 or maybe 4.5 kidnappings if you want to go there, making her the princess that was kidnapped the most in the show. But even then, I think it's kind of unfair since the Ice King was only solely responsible for 2 of them despite what the show tried to enforce. Really, if anything, I'd argue Wildberry Princess was the most kidnapped since all of her kidnappings were purely by the Ice King. And even then, of course PB is going to get most of all the princesses since she was the most important and reoccurring princess character in the show, so her chances were drastically increased. But yeah, honestly, like with PB, I feel the princesses didn't get kidnapped as much as you think. I mean, they were literally introduced as kidnapping fodder, no different than like Princess Peach. But only about 18 of the 40 princesses in the show were kidnapped at least once. And even then, 14 of those 18 were only kidnapped once in the show, with most of the others getting kidnapped by arc reasons, and not exactly just to be married off. Only Wildberry Princess really was continually kidnapped for that purpose, and she still got plenty of appearances that didn't involve kidnapping at all. And hell, even Ice King got kidnapped once. And yeah, it kinda goes to show that despite being a core part of one of the main characters at the beginning, the show really wanted to use the princesses as more than just damsels in distresses. And even when it does happen, usually only does it once per princess, sometimes even just making one-offs to do it. And I really respect that in this show they try to make the princesses stand on their own as characters and rulers of their own kingdoms. And even in Get Together, still have their place as royalty like in Princess Day, establishing their duties and relations to each other. But honestly, I kinda wish they got kidnapped more in a weird way, but only because, as I said, I get really interested in the multiple other princesses of Ooh, and I love seeing them and the lore they often give. And unfortunately, I feel a lot aren't given the development and screen time they really deserve individually. And at least they give them more attention and notoriety in the plots of the show. But yeah, it really goes to show how well Adventure Time handles its characters and world, that even with so many princesses, I genuinely want to see more of them, and hope in the future they get a lot more development they deserve. But seriously, did we really need so many LSP episodes? Come.
Wildberry, don't pretend. I know you like the silver foxes.